Last week, on August 29th and 30th, possibly the most devastating natural disaster in recent history hit the United States Gulf Coast. Though only a Category 3 hurricane when it made landfall, Hurricane Katrina still packed a powerful punch. New Orleans, one of the highest impacted areas, saw levees destroyed and 80% of the city flooded. Well, what could we have done? Natural disasters are exactly as they're described, right? With storm surges over 15 feet and an aging levee system, the impact of the storm was magnified. Truth be told, much of this could have been avoided. The local, state, and federal government all failed to ensure the safety of the citizens of the Gulf Coast, and more notably New Orleans. Katrina was no surprise. They knew it was coming. It had even reached Category 5 days earlier, but still, little response was taken. Louisiana Governor Kathleen Blanco issued a state of emergency on August 26th, supposedly enough time to evacuate and try and minimize the impact of the storm. But this obviously wasn't enough time, being that there was no adequate evacuation plan in place. Many people became trapped or moved to the Superdome for their safety. To a degree, this worked against any plans for safety. With lack of food and water and thousands inside the confined quarters of the stadium, this proved ineffective. The storm struck on August 29th. Our president and vice president sat on vacation as the storm hit. Reasonably, you would believe that a disaster of this magnitude would have them end these vacations a few days early, and be there leading the much-needed help for the area. That scenario was quite the opposite of their response. President Bush elected to not end his 5-week vacation a few days early, and Vice President Cheney didn't return until 6 days after the storm hit. Though this is shocking, it is no worse than the response of our emergency management agency, FEMA. FEMA followed suit with the president and lacked the urgency that the upcoming situation obviously required. Louisiana Governor Blanco wrote a letter requesting federal assistance on August 28th when it became obvious that local and state emergency centers would be incapacitated by the storm. Though this request for aid was sent well before Hurricane Katrina made landfall, FEMA's initial response took until after the storm had already passed. According to the Associated Press, FEMA Director Michael Brown waited for hours until after the storm had ended to propose limited relief efforts to his boss. The Associated Press also stated that his memo lacked the urgency of the situation. Our government from the top down obviously couldn't grasp the severity of the situation. How can we, as a nation, say that we put our best efforts towards avoiding catastrophe when our president and vice president are more worried about their vacations? And the Federal Emergency Management Agency, now part of the Department of Homeland Security, couldn't effectively manage a disaster they knew was coming. Can we trust them to do their jobs when a disaster comes by surprise, like a terrorist attack? The government needs to reevaluate how they manage themselves, so that in the future, they can help protect the citizens of this country.